is a little bit naughty. I probably shouldn't advise this. That's my top tip. Pictures are like your eggs. Bad eggs, milked so much.
Hello guys, welcome back to another video. I am so excited by today's video because I have been wanting to show you my A-level photography coursework for the longest time. Almost a year now. Because of the pandemic, it was just prolonged even more, so I'm even more excited to be able to show you my work. There is a lot of it, so I'm obviously not going to go through everything, but I'll show you the bits that I maybe love the most and maybe have some tips on. I don't know, we'll see how this video goes. Obviously I've never done this before, so I don't know how it's going to go, but yeah, I hope that along the way I can give you some more tips in addition to the ones that I've given in a previous video, which I will link up screen and down below, because I did film like a proper in-depth video on how I got an A-star in A-level photography. So yeah, let's get on with the coursework. So I've got everything from first and second year. I thought I would show you a couple of my final pieces from the first year that actually, looking at it now, brings back so many memories, and I didn't appreciate at the time how much I enjoyed doing this. Yeah, the lessons were boring, but when you just see your final pieces, it does make you really, really happy. In the first year, I kind of picked up a passion for black and white photography, and you'll see by the second year it's literally all I use. I just think it looks so effective and really makes the picture look more sophisticated and professional. So that's one tip that maybe you could take away from this, is if your picture's looking a bit lackluster in colour, then maybe change it to black and white. So boost the contrast to make the black and white really stand out. But anyway, getting on to the things. So this was when I was first learning to do aperture. I think I'm gonna put cutaways in because this is just gonna be easier for you to appreciate the picture. With this, I wanted to, it looked good in colour, but I thought that making the red stand out more looked really cool. So that's what I did. And this actually makes me really happy. For the first year where I'd never done any photography like this, actually that's quite not too shabby, if I do say so myself. And then more of a similar thing, I got a picture of this. This was in Winchester. So there was just a random red bike, and I really made sure that I boosted the saturation of the bike, just to make it stand out more, make it a bit more vibrant against the black and white. We had to sort of use, we went through like a topic of doing hand rendering, and I'm not good at certain types of art, and hand rendering kind of, it's like a love-hate thing. Like, I loved the idea of it, but I could never execute it the way I wanted it to. But one thing I did fall in love with was origami. So strange, random, I know, but basically I would take pictures of say some flowers, then I would rotate and reflect the image to make almost like a fabric print, and then I would print that off and make origami shapes out of that. And this was one of the examples that I did. Obviously this is the pictures of roses rotated and reflected. I stuck them on a piece of paper after I'd folded them into butterflies, and I thought they were quite cute. I was going to do this for my second year personal investigation, but I don't know, in the end I felt like it was going to be too complicated. So that's one thing that I would definitely encourage, is that it's good to be creative like this in the first year particularly, but if it comes to the second year and you're looking to do something and you want to be a bit niche, it's good to be niche, but at the same time, like, go within your realm. If you can't physically carry out a project for like 6 months, you think you're gonna run dry, then don't do it, because you're going to be doing it for a long time. And the worst thing you will find is if you suddenly run out of inspiration, or there's like barely any products to show and write about. So that's why I didn't do that, as much as I would have absolutely adored to do this, but that's why I didn't. Now we move on to my personal investigation. I did mine on historical architecture, and this was the sketchbook. It's so heavy, I don't know, I'm going to be able to hold this up for too long. So on the front I've got my favourite picture from the whole project. That was from the Natural History Museum. It's also a final piece, I love it very much. And then on the back, nobody else did this, and I don't really know where the idea came from, I decided to do a blurb on the back. I don't know, I just thought that it sort of finished the project quite nicely, so maybe that's something that you could do, and it kind of basically just explains where I went, who I was inspired by, and what's in the book. And I just thought that that just made the whole thing a little bit more, I don't know, presentable and kind of cute, and it made the back of the book look a lot nicer, let's just say that. I'm not going to go through all the pages because, to be honest, there's a lot of writing, like, appreciate how much writing that is, but I'll just pick through things, sift through the book and see if there's anything that maybe is of use or something that could maybe be helpful for you guys. So the first page that I wanted to talk about is my mind maps and my photo montages of inspiring photographers. While it's good to first initially start getting Pinterest ideas and pictures of things that you maybe would like to do, sometimes I feel like that never represents your products at the end, because you, bearing in mind that you're doing it for 6 months, and the pictures that you maybe intend to start with and be like aren't going to necessarily reflect what you do at the end of the 6 months. So yes, make a photo montage, but leave gaps so that you can go back and add to it later on. This is a little bit naughty, I probably shouldn't advise this, but basically I looked at my own pictures at the end of the 6 months and thought, right, this is what my pictures look like, let's find some inspiring artists that look like that. So it looked like it was more cohesive throughout the whole thing, and I did that with my, like, when you had to compare your work throughout the book to inspiring photographers, I did that as well. Like, I would pick photographers that looked like my work rather than the other way around, if that makes sense, just so that it looked like I was being clever and resourceful when in reality I was just being sneaky. In the end I ended up doing 9 shoots, so yeah, that's a lot, but I think it's because I visited so many places and I got so organised that I just thought I might as well put them in. And I also did it as like a mini project in the first year, so that's why I have so many pictures, and I was so organised with it. So that's something that maybe you could bear in mind if you're doing something in the first year that you thought was really easy or you enjoyed. Carry it over into the second year. That's my top tip. The first place I went was St. Cross Hospital. You'll be able to see the reason why I love black and white so much throughout this whole sketchbook is because the colour pictures never do the cathedral justice in the way that black and white do. So that is just why I love black and white. They're probably my favourite in the beginning or early stages of the shoots were these ones from Winchester. There's always some pictures that bring a little bit of joy, and that one from Winchester is definitely one that brings so much joy. You'll notice at the bottom of the pages I have a lot of writing, commenting on the picture, what I did to it, if there's anything that inspired me like a photographer, and also what I've learned and what I'd maybe do differently in the future. I think that that shows you are sophisticated and ready to adapt and change and evolve your skills as a photographer, and that's something that I think that they do look for and appreciate a lot. Then next is the V&A in London. This shoot was okay. I didn't end up using a great deal of the pictures. I used one just because this was like a mini kind of shoot that I did as a bonus, and it wasn't ever going to be a proper big shoot, so I still included it because it made it look like I'd done a lot, but I didn't do too much for that. Then shoot 4 was Chichester. These, I remember thinking, God, these pictures are so blurry. I don't know if you better pick it up in the camera, but these pictures are so blurry, and that's one thing that I remember now my teacher saying, like, giving the analogy of bad eggs. If you wouldn't cook a cake with rotten eggs, and it wouldn't be a nice cake if you did. So pictures are like your eggs, and you have to make sure that the raw image is perfect and crisp and in focus and got the right exposure, all that jazz, because otherwise when it comes to editing, unless you're doing something really elaborate with it, it's just going to look awful. And this is where I learnt so much in my Chichester shoot, that the pictures turned out okay, but they weren't the best quality because they were slightly blurry. But yeah, that's just one thing to maybe keep in mind. And then next up was Salisbury, and by this point I was kind of getting into the swing of how to angle the camera, where to focus, like along the nave, along the sides of the walls, focusing on the windows, because I had in my mind that black and white photos would be perfect with the light coming out the window falling through, so that when you did the black and white, all you could really focus on was like daylight coming through the windows. And this was something that I milked so much in my writing, like at the bottom of the pages, because obviously I was going to religious architectural places all the time, unintentionally, because they were just perfect historical architecture. But I couldn't not talk about like the light coming through being a reflection of God's presence, and I don't know, all that sort of jazz. Milk something, do it, because it will make you sound so like knowledgeable and thoughtful during your photo taking, even if that wasn't really your intention. So yeah, that's one thing to bear in mind. So I just forgot to mention that all of these shoots aren't actually in the order that I took them. I put them going from like okay to my favourite shoots. And then we move on to Oxford. This was a really lovely shoot actually. I was quite impressed with the building itself, and also how my photography worked out. I explored a lot of different angles in this one, because I did this earlier on than all the other shoots, so I was just trying to finding my feet a little bit. But that's one thing that I love about the black and white, is like you can see in the pictures of the stained glass windows how much the light and dark really makes the beauty of the artwork come out. And that's something that I loved, and it's definitely something that if your photography lends to that, I would highly recommend you doing black and white. And then you'll see in this picture, which is something I want to talk about. I know I said I wasn't going to go through the whole sketchbook, but apparently I am. Vignettes. All of my pictures have got a vignette on of some form. A vignette is basically where it goes, it's like almost like a border around the outside of the image that fades into the centre, or well, mine fades to the centre, you don't have to have it to the centre. But basically I did a black vignette around the outside of the borders, and then feathered it so that it was so gradually going back to the normal picture. So A, added a focal point, which was the centre of the image, and B, made the whites and the lighter tones in the image really stand out. And I obviously milked this again, saying that, you know, like show a journey to God, things like that. I know it sounds cheesy, but they love it, so say it. And then I personally loved Notting Hill Gate Station shoot, but it didn't fit with my religious architecture kind of photography, so I didn't end up using them a great deal, but they still make me happy, so I do want to show you them. So, and then we've got Bath. This was one of the first shoots I ever did, and it was the reason why I fell in love with historical architecture. And this is my favourite ceiling picture in the world. This was the first one I ever did, and I just love it. I just think, I don't know what it is, I don't know how I managed to get it like that, but it's just beautiful. So yeah, basically what I do with these ceiling pictures is I obviously take a picture of a little bit of the ceiling, and then I'll just use rotate and reflect to make it look like I've taken a picture of the whole ceiling. And that was inspired by Peter Lee, and he did like panoramic photography, and I would literally always say this was inspired by Peter Lee, who did panoramic photography, and it just gives you those little extra marks. But this was me trying to be more creative in a way that I could manage, so I wasn't going too overboard and like completely out of my theme, but at the same time I was showing that I could do more when I needed to. And then the Natural History Museum, which was my favourite, which is why it's the last one. By this point I was going bold with my contrast. Like, you'll see by this picture that it's basically all black apart from the windows, and of course this is just, it's very abstract, but I love it so much. And I said this was going out my comfort zone because I wasn't used to doing this much contrast in my images, and it just shows your willingness to adapt and change. And then these two here are my favourite pictures. They're just simple and, like, I don't know, just beautiful. The architecture in it does make me very happy. And then we move on to my final piece plan, but I'm not going to go through that too much because I'm going to show you my final pieces. So that was like the overall main bulk of my coursework. I did start the exam period kind of part of the 40%, but basically because of the pandemic I didn't finish this, so that's why it's unfinished. But I will show you a few of my favourite pictures because this is some of my favourite pictures. The question we got, basically it was about symmetry, and I was like, oh my gosh, historical architecture, symmetry, yes please. So I focused on symmetry in my historical architecture, and it meant that I was able to just carry on what I was doing but just visit more places, which was a little bit difficult, I can't lie, it was quite difficult, but at the same time manageable. So I went back to Winchester because they don't look at your previous coursework. You can go to the same places but you have to have completely new pictures, so that's fine by me. I went there, and I had a different teacher for this bit because my other teacher went off on maternity leave, and this new teacher was kind of encouraging me to carry on what I was doing but also try to be a bit more creative, and that's why I've got some of these images in. I loved this one from Winchester that I did because it was really symmetrical. On the lower half of the picture I would do like a grey vignette, which was so subtle, because then it made it look like it was a water reflection, kind of reflected the peace and serenity of historical places of worship and things like that. Then I went to St Paul's Cathedral, and St Paul's Cathedral, I have been longing to go there, and I can't lie, it was amazing, but I was a little bit disappointed because it was so busy. It was really hard to get pictures without people in there, but I think I did a good job in the end. So again, I did more of the mirror reflection-y, watery reflection things. I did that in colour as well, which actually, because the building itself was so dark, I really liked the coloured ones. But again, they wouldn't have made final pieces because they wouldn't have fit the theme black and white. Oh, we went to Salisbury as well, so I did do more than I thought I had. And I think it's something to do with Salisbury. I think the ceiling is made of a different stone, so that's why it's so dark. It's not an excuse, I promise. Oh yeah, I literally completely forgot about this. So one thing that I thought was quite cool, so we took my ceiling pictures and my teacher was like, why don't you try rotating and reflecting them more? So what I did is I just carried on rotating and reflecting, making almost prints, and yeah, I quite liked them, but then I didn't know what to do with them. I was going to start doing origami with them, but I wouldn't have known what to have made with them. And then it comes my favourite things of all time, and I literally completely forgot about these. I made mandalas with my window pane pictures. So I joined 2 pictures together, and then I took the middle bit that looked like almost like a teardrop, just kept rotating and reflecting it around in a 360 circle, and it makes me so happy. Like, I can't believe I made this. And then I inverted it and then did a bit of mixture of the two. They weren't my favourite, but that was my teacher trying to get me to do more than just black and white, so, you know. Then we went back to the natural history, and I actually really loved this shoot again, with the water reflections, and this one that almost looks like a tunnel, even though it's just the ceiling rotated and reflected. I don't know, I just think that this was really quite good. And that concludes me rambling. So that was all my work from photography. I hope that it gave you some inspiration or just was quite fun to watch. It makes me really happy looking at all my pictures. I'm glad to have them back because I don't know, I just felt like I was missing my babies. So yeah, but anyway, that is the end of the video. I hope that you enjoyed this, kind of like a how I got A star in photography. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.